Hey, good morning. It's John here with H&J, and I got another passage for us. 1 Kings chapter 19, starting in verse 11. Go out and stand before me on the mountain, the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And a voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" I love this story because it reminds us that distractions are everywhere. But if we can get still, we can start to begin to learn how to hear the voice of the Lord in our lives. Later on in the book of Elijah 31:21, I believe, or 30:21, it says, "And you will hear a voice from behind you, whether you turn right or to the left. It will say, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" Chris Snider, a good friend of ours here at H&J, sat in my office earlier this week and shared with me a message he heard over the weekend. And in that message, the preacher said, "Listen, if you don't make time to get out into the wild in you will get out." And I love that statement because even Jesus would go separate himself, get away from the crowd, get away from his disciples, get out into, a sunrise, get out into the woods, wherever, and find that gentle voice and begin to speak with the Father. If Jesus, God himself, needed to get out into some solitude, how much more do we need to do that, right? The distractions are everywhere. The fires, the earthquakes, the windstorms, life is everywhere and it's loud. But when we pull away from all that, we begin to hear the small, gentle voice in our hearts speaking to us. This is the way, walk in it. There's a great book by John Eldredge called Wild at Heart. And he talks about the masculine heart. And he opens the book talking about the greatest drink of water he's ever gotten in the middle of Alaska, somewhere where he's just drinking water from this fresh mountain spring, and just how raw and pure that moment was for him. And there's something in the heart of man that is wild, right? And it's good to tap into that. It's good to get out into the wild to pursue the Lord there. And so I just want to encourage you this morning, this week, guys, that make time, carve away time to get out and get still before the Lord. Okay, I'll put the link for that book down in the comments or in the bio section here of this video, but check it out. John Eldredge, Wild at Heart. If you don't have anything else to read, you can always pick up the good book and read that too. But man, get still, listen to the voice of the Lord. Amen. Thanks, guys.